listening to Flashpoint as Bernstein. We are in Tucson, Arizona, where we are joined now by Cesar Lopez. He is a health educator, works within the school system, within the charter school system, and is a community organizer, works with T.Y.L.O, and they have a number of projects, including the Barrio Sustainability Project, and we are going to talk to you about your work, Cesar, in this community, which is now conflicted and under attack, you might say, by legislatures, by leaders within the state in terms of their decision to demonize, criminalize migrant workers, immigrant workers, really anybody who doesn't look like John Wayne. And we were with you yesterday for the march on MLK Way, but I think a great way to start, Cesar, is tell us exactly where we're sitting and the meaning of the sign that's behind us that we've seen up and down the blocks called "We Reject Racism."
Well, as you can see, the block is full of these signs, which really means community organizing, because community organizing is about relationship building. Where we meet and where we do our work is within the barrio. Our offices are not outside of the barrio. They're within the homes of this neighborhood. Right now we're sitting at the Centro Tierra Libertad, Tierra Libertad Organization Center, which is the main meeting center and main demonstration site for sustainability of Tierra Libertad and our solutions-based organizing, our multi-level solutions-based organizing work. One of the site we're sitting on here right now has a lot more work to do, including some construction of an outside and solar kitchen. But there is all sorts of passive, simple and complex water harvesting and active water harvesting. There's all sorts of rebuilding of the desert here to attract the birds and the animals and the insects and the bacteria that's healthy for growing vegetables and growing food crops. And of course, there's bio-intensive food production here, which is growing lots of food in small spaces, right? Something that is a surprise for folks within the desert. So, and this demonstration site is one of a few places we've worked on, and one of quite a few places we have within a co-op. And this site is a place to demonstrate to people that you can do it in your backyards, right? And there's a lot of reasons that are public health. There's a lot of reasons that are economic and that are about food access of why this is one of our solutions that we work on, right?
We've seen these signs all over the neighborhood, and obviously they're directly related to human rights. There's a slash as in no support of SB 1070, the draconian law that was just passed here in Arizona. When you talk to people, I see them spread through the neighborhood. Do you talk about the sign? Do you talk about human rights? Is sustainability a part of sort of a holistic picture, if you will, of what the work you do?
Well, what's interesting is that we embrace migrant rights and justice, and we want that. But what's interesting is that we're not migrant rights organizers specifically. Even if we had a migrant reform or justice now, we would still be encountered with many, many levels of attacks on communities that are poor and that are of color. And so even if we had some sort of migrant reform passed right now, we would still need to do a lot of community organizing to start to rebuild the social fabric of families and the communities within this barrio that's culturally rich and diverse, and to transform it and to take some of the stuff that the rich parts that already exist and some of the rich parts that existed 20, 30 years ago when it was a more vibrant place, where it was an envy of folks that they wanted to live within the neighborhood, they wanted to walk the alleyways, things that folks don't do anymore. They were just fine with sending their kids off to school because there was so many people in the street that always knew them. So we want to rebuild the connections that families have with here. We want to rebuild the connection that it's okay to talk to your neighbors, and it's okay to talk to your neighbors about your family, about the current situation politically, about what we're going to do as a neighborhood to make sure that we transform our neighborhood, beautify it, make it ghetto green is what we call it, right? And also start to build our own solutions for ourselves, and not wait for anybody to come in and save us or give us solutions, but start to build our solutions so we own those solutions so we move forward. So the relationships that we have with folks are not just through this sign. It's funny, this sign is one way that we bring people into protection networks, which are a really, really interesting thing I'd like to talk more about. They're also another way to build relationships with people outside of just migrant justice and laws, right? And legislation that's attacking migrants. It's a way to say that there's visible resistance within this neighborhood and within other parts of Tucson that says, hey, at least these households here, and the businesses and institutions and churches around this area and this neighborhood, at least they stand against racism. That's the first step. The second step is saying, hey, let's have deeper conversations about know your rights. Let's have conversations about joining protection networks. Let's have conversations about defending our rights, right? Let's have conversations about community organizing, which the base principle of community organizing is saying you have the right and responsibility to be your own leader, even within this neighborhood. And we're here to stand with you, so we start to build solutions together, and we all defend ourselves together and move forward.
Say a little bit more about the protection networks that you alluded to.
Protection networks are really important. In about a month, they'll be up on altoarizona.com. So that is a plug for altoarizona.com, Endelon, and all the work that's going on there, and on other websites. We're going to have a living document, which is a protection network, which is something that's been developed by many people, and we've sort of formalized it amongst ourselves. A protection network is a network in place when undocumented people and or community people within community organizing confront crises or problems. To be very specific, it could be of very many different types of crises or problems. One of them could be detention. We're dealing with something pre-SB 1070 called discretion by Sheriff, Pima County Sheriff, and Tucson Police Department. So if, for instance, somebody gets stopped by the police and they decide that they're going to call the Border Patrol, which we have the largest Border Patrol station in the country here, so they'll be here within minutes, then the protection network goes into place because there's texts that go to somebody within the organization. Somebody in the organization starts to call legal help. Somebody in the organization starts to fundraise. Someone within the organization tells all of the members, all the community organizers within the organization and family members what's going on with this specific family. Somebody makes sure that if there's minors that are in school that they get picked up, right? To go deeper with protection networks, and I don't think we could cover all the details right now, is that there's all of those steps. There's also funds that the organization puts in specifically just to help either families pay for rent and or pay for bail. One of the sad things about protection networks is that we're signing power of attorney over to citizen friends of these families, right? Of mixed status families, mixed documentation status families, in case they need to rent and or pay a mortgage and or sell a house or car or belongings or move them out of somewhere. The saddest part is that we're having 18 and 19-year-olds that have citizenship, but their parents don't have that. And not just this, but this is one example. 18 and 19-year-olds that are now have power over attorney over their 10, 12, 13, and 15-year-old siblings. Because in case their parents do get detained and deported and or start that process, right, these folks will have power of attorney, which means that these kids will not be sent to Child Protective Services, which means that we could still keep some of the very fragile family and social fabric of these barrios and families and communities together, so we don't have the kids sent out to Child Protective Services. One of the aspects of protection networks is to protect families and protect organizing. It could be ran by organizations, it could be ran by families, it could be ran by groups. We feel that if undocumented people are going to be organizing in the community to build power from the ground up and be their own leaders, we feel that those communities also need to step in and defend them in case of deportation, in case they can't get into school because they don't have the proper documentation. So protection networks are very broad, but very specific when they have to be put into action.
Now, in that regard, give us, just so we keep a human face on this, give us an example either of somebody who fell through the cracks, a specific person, and somebody maybe who you managed to rescue out of being, oblivion and being caught in the system.
I would love for listeners, if it's possible, to visit a 7-minute video that we're going to hand over to you, the link right now. And so you could see some of what protection networks are in place. So you could see undocumented people in southern Arizona fighting for themselves. And so you could see mixed status families that are affected, right? One of the things that we say with protection networks is that undocumented people should not be going to organizations asking what organizations are going to do it for them. They should be organizing themselves, starting their own organizations or joining them, because they alone have the sole right and responsibility to defend themselves and to be their own leaders. That's another piece of protection networks, is that no one is in the protection network of Tierra Libertad organization if they're not organizers with us. Does that make sense? Right? It makes sense that folks are putting in work, and if they're putting in work, all of us are going to put all of our weight, all of our strength, and all of our fists in front of them and for them, including resources. One of the stories that I could talk to you about, which I do hope you visit this video, is Nancy's father. Nancy is a wonderful dreamer, and I can speak about her because she's out. She's one of those people that says, I'm undocumented, I'm unafraid, and I want to go to university because that's the capability that I have, but I can't because of the political situation that won't let these folks into university. Nancy's father was picked up July 16th before the enactment of SB 1070 on July 29th, and he was picked up for going a little bit over the speed limit on his way to work. On his way to work, he was picked up with 2 other people. These 2 other people all 3 people were detained. He had in his possession the G28 paper, which is a Homeland Security paper, which secures legal representation. What protection networks do is they at least stall deportation. That's the only thing they can guarantee to do, right? And so the G28 paper is something that the organization has, that our legal representation has, and that every member that's represented by a G28 always has on them, right? What Nancy's father did is, with the help of Nancy being an informed and active citizen, right? And I say citizen with quotes because of the status that these people have, right? That these people consider themselves more citizen than most people that inactively take that position, right? And she had the information, and she gave it to her family, and she gave them the G28 papers, and she made sure that they were all represented. And so as soon as Nancy's father was pulled over, he made a phone call, and that phone call went to Nancy. Nancy made phone calls to everybody within the organization. Immediately, we had people like myself that were busy that day, relieved of my work so I can go on and work on legal. Immediately, we had people checking in to see if Nancy had minor siblings, which we realized we already knew, but we wanted to make sure that nobody had to get picked up at elementary, middle school, or high school, that we can move forward, and that Nancy was going to be the one at the head of the organization, working to get her father out of detention within the huge privatized detention facilities here in Arizona. There's a lot of other things that protection networks have, like saving money for bail funds, right? That means also like making the decision to say we're staying in Arizona and we're fighting and we're going to change this. And the only way that we're going to change this is through community organizing, through building mass movement that says we've had enough of your legislation, we're knocking down your doors, and we're going to change this up, right? We're changing the situation around.
You're listening to Flashpoints on Pacifica Radio. We are speaking with Cesar Lopez. He works with T.Y.L.O. Libertad. They have many projects, sustainability projects. We're here in Tucson with the Flashpoints team, reporting in the context of the life and times of Martin Luther King and the ongoing battle for human rights, civil rights here for everybody who lives in the state. And that is it a majority of brown people that live in this state? I mean, when we say we're in Tucson, we're really more in Mexico than in the United States.
It really is a borderlands. When Spanish translates to a fronterizo community, this is a borderlands area where a lot of the folks that are listening on the radio right now, from the Bay Area, from the East Coast, from different parts of the country, a lot of the undocumented people that you see have passed through here. This is a highway. Most of the people that live here that are undocumented or documented are borderlands people. So we all have very close connections to these areas, right? The social fabric of our borderland existence is also breaking down. That's the existence. I'm not sure if it's half. I think it's 48% of the population of Arizona is Latino, Mexicano, Chicano, Central American, South American, right? So it is what some people call brown or raza, right? And raza just means the people, right? And that's our identity. Our identity is very diverse and very rich, and we stick to all of it. We say all of us are together, and we're together with white folk, and we're together with black folk, and we're together with everybody, gays, straight, everybody that's willing to stand on the side of justice, and they're willing to say that we are our own heroes and sheroes. We will not wait for Martin Luther King to come get us out of this. We need to start educating, empowering, and making sure that everybody, not just famous people or political figures or people that are in charge of organizations for many years, that every person, every common person, undocumented and documented, has the right and power to educate themselves about how to defend ourselves and to lead us out of this. And that's the only way we're going to get out of this, is with a mass movement, with all the people that we have respect for, that have been talking about migrant rights for a very long time, but also opening that up and saying, you know what, this is about everybody, and everybody's got to lead our way out of this.
And finally, you do that really frontline, as a frontline educator. You consider yourself, and you work as a health educator, as a community educator. You work with young people in the public school, in the Tucson public school actually, where ethnic education, ethnic studies, and Mexican American studies is actually now banned. But you talk about holistic sustainability. What does it mean to be a health educator in this community, in this special community?
Well, part of what holistic means that we stand on the side of justice and we stand with the dirt roots. What Tierra Libertad organization says and our sustainability work, what we say by sustainability is that sustainability means dignity. That we want to lay the terrain for the next generation to grow up healthier than us and healthier than us, and to live with guaranteed dignity, right? And for us, that's also working on ethnic studies and working on migrant rights. There's a big struggle for ethnic studies within TUSD, and they have our full support. There's a lot of different types of ethnic studies teaching that goes on here. Community organizing is also ethnic studies teaching, right? And I think that holistic view, and a little bit about how Tierra Libertad started also, the holistic view is saying we will not comply with SB 1070 and we will not comply with HB 2281. We will stand on the side of justice, and we will stand in solidarity with everyone that says, you know what, we've had enough of this. We cannot give in and saying we're complying with these sort of things. We're going to start to come together and fight these things. And even if that means that's a long-term struggle, and a long-term struggle to build the community organizing capacity to turn this around, to start to bring these borders down, these emotional, mental, spiritual, and very physical borders, then that's what we're going to do. We're going to put the investment in. That's going to take many years of barrio organizing, many years of different cultures and ethnicities organizing within Arizona and outside of Arizona to say, let's turn this around, right? Tierra Libertad organization comes from a sphere of public health organizing and education. We all started as public health educators. A lot of us are doing different types of work. For us, public health and health prevention and health empowerment always meant community organizing education, always meant ethnic studies, which means we've got to learn about who we are, and not just in the past. What are our movements in South America, Central America, and Mexico saying now? What can we learn from them if we dissect them, right? We should not have a chasm between ethnic studies and organizing. We should close that chasm up and saying this is actually all part of the same thing. We're living in a environment where we're going to start to see a lot of the youth and a lot of the wonderful products that ethnic studies classes have come out. And the products that they're putting out are these youth that are vibrant, that are saying we want to be active within our communities, and we have to support these youth, right? Just like we support all these teachers within the lawsuit and outside of the lawsuit, all the teachers of ethnic studies within TUSD and outside of TUSD, saying we have your back, we have your support, and we're all in this together.
All right, Cesar Lopez, I want to thank you very much for joining us on Flashpoints here in Tucson, Arizona, telling us about some